I vividly remember my father, who was a former 10th Division Mountain Troop person, along with Cliff Fontaine and Bob Beck, all migrating to Bozeman. But my father thought really the mountains were better just left to him alone. But he knew as we grew beyond Bear Canyon that something was going to happen. And so he and Bob did a big trip up to the ridge in spring. My father took films, made it look absolutely gorgeous. He said, I know it's going to happen. If it's going to happen, we should make it right. And when they put in the new Bridger lift recently, almost in the exact path of the very first Palma lift, I thought, wow, those guys got it right the first time. It was very exciting to see how good and how accurate they were.
Growing up in Bozeman, we really became involved in Bridgers with a community feeling, because we found families working up here to clear rocks in the fall and do basic construction. And there was very much of a family feeling that really knit the community together.
I first heard about Bridger Bowl. I was at a Boy Scout camp at the Flaming Arrow Ranch in Christmas of '54. And somebody said at that time, we're building a ski area up here. It's going to be open in about 3 weeks. And my dad was working on it. He knew about it, but he never said anything to me. And so anyway, we went up there, and so the first time I skied Bridger Bowl was shortly after that. I was probably 14, 15 years old.
My first memory of skiing up here was before really any of the lifts or anything were in. There was a rope tow that was on Boot Hill that was put in by Bob Beck, who was the MSU ski coach back then, and Lyle Olson, a mechanic here in Bozeman. And they had brought an old car in here and jacked it up on blocks and created a drive wheel on one of the rear wheels and put in this rope tow. And there was no road plowed into here, so Wally Eagle brought us up. I was on the high school ski team, and Wally brought us up one day, and we hiked in from the main road into where this car was set up. And we all were required to ski pack the hill because the snow was heavy and not quite skiable. And I think it was $1 to ride the tow and then pack the hill. And then I think we made about 2 runs and went home. But that's my first memory of skiing up here. And then I do remember I was competing on the high school ski team. Wally was our coach. And in the fall, when they were building the first T-bar, they would bring us up here on weekends and help dig the holes for the new T-bar. I never could figure out how that helped get our legs in shape, but anyway.
As far as the lift itself, I think the first section were little bars, little metal bars, but they kind of would freeze in the snow because they dragged along in the snow. And then if you sat on them, you put them between your legs, you know, they could have that melting snow on your pants and they'd sort of stick to you. And so it was not very long before they changed those little metal bars to the round little platters, little wooden platters, and then from there to the double T's. And every chapter of that has its stories with getting picked up and moved around, and deep trenches in the snow as you went up that would have their own challenges, and you get dragged up if you didn't have a good partner. And
the Palma lift from the bottom, the lower one, as I got a little older, I could ride the lift. Kind of, because at the second tower it would lift me up, twirl me around, and dump me, and so I did not get past that tower for very long, unless my father would take me up between his legs, and that I remember very fondly skiing with my dad. My other sister, whose name is Anne, remembers us going up the upper Palma lift, and there was a steep section that, you know, kind of went up the hill, and then there was a very steep little section, and it's still there, you can ski down it. But that would, she said, she remembered kids being flipped off right and left. My father would take us up to go skiing, and we would be all littering the snow on the side of the hill of the lift.
I remember that too, and maybe because I was a couple years older, there was a certain time in your weight life that you could kind of jump.
Yes.
And you
Like you
weren't
said.
supposed to, but you did it anyway because it was
Yeah.
so fun.
Well, if you stop yourself with your ski poles, you get a little extra boost.
That too.
Oh, I didn't learn that technique.
And then you can twirl.
I didn't learn that
Oh,
trick
I
yet.
remember that it would pick you up off the ground, and I was pretty small, short legs. It would pick me up, and we used to have contests to see who could make how many spins around before it put you back down on the ground.
If you were lucky, you came down with your skis
Pointed up the
forward.
hill, and if you didn't,
And if you
it could
didn't,
be
you
a
were
wreck.
not on there anymore.
My first memories, one is the parking lot down where Pierre's ski lift starts now, big parking lot there. We never came early enough to get up to the fancy lot. I thought those were an anointed
I did
place
too.
where only the
That
fancy
would-
people went. We just went down below and then had to lug our skis up that long area.
I remember putting lots of pressure on my folks. Let's get up Saturday morning. It would be a disaster if we didn't get to Bridger Bowl in time to drive the road up to the upper chalet and get up to the upper parking lot before the upper parking lot filled up. I would probably be embarrassed with my friends if I wasn't there early.
I remember we had to drive from the main road, I think, was it a 6x6, a big army thing? For
The duck.
people that didn't have four-wheel drive, they had to ride
duck.
with somebody else.
Nobody could get up from where the highway is now, from the county road, which is gravel. They couldn't get up here unless they had a four-wheel drive, and then they had to come up early in the morning. The only one that had one, I think, was Dr. Sable. And you'd get in that duck and you'd go up and they'd churn up through the mud in the spring, and it was, those great big 4-foot, 5-foot tall tires. And it was, I don't know if it'd be fun, but it was a memory.